All right, so get this. We're diving into some pretty powerful concepts today. We're talking about spiritual anointing, as described by Dag Heward-Mills.
Okay.
And we're using his YouTube sermon as our guide. In it, he lays out this like 7-step process for catching the anointing. It's actually pretty intriguing.
Yeah, even if you aren't particularly religious, what's fascinating is how these ideas could actually be relevant to anyone.
Right.
Like anyone who's interested in, say, leadership or influence or even just personal growth.
Exactly. But before we get too far ahead of ourselves, let's back up for a sec and clarify what anointing even means.
Right.
Like in this context.
So in the world of Christianity, anointing, it refers to a kind of like divine empowerment, you could say, or authority that's bestowed by God. It's seen as this like source of spiritual power that helps individuals fulfill their calling or purpose. And Heward-Mills really emphasizes this as like a key ingredient for effective leadership and influence.
He doesn't stop at just the definition, though. Right. He actually goes on to outline this incredibly detailed 7-step process for actually catching this anointing.
Yeah.
The first step he calls knowledge of the message, which, I mean, seems pretty straightforward.
You would think so, right?
Yeah.
But Heward-Mills actually makes this really important distinction.
Okay.
He shares this personal story about struggling to, preach a message that he himself didn't fully grasp. Even though, like, he found it compelling. It's kind of like when you try to explain something you don't really understand.
You just can't.
It just doesn't have the same impact.
Yeah, I've totally been there.
Yeah.
It's like trying to teach someone to, like, bake a cake.
Right.
When you've only ever followed the instructions on the back of the box.
Exactly.
You know the steps, but not the, like, why behind them.
Exactly. And that's where Heward-Mills' second catch comes in, right? Understanding the message. He differentiates this from just knowing the facts.
Right.
It's about, like, truly grasping the underlying principles at play.
Yeah.
And how those principles actually work.
So it's not enough to just memorize a recipe. You need to understand the science of baking.
Yep. Yeah, exactly.
You need to know why certain ingredients react with each other in specific ways.
He uses the concept of loyalty as like a great illustration of this.
Okay.
He actually cites Proverbs 20.28, which talks about how loyalty is crucial for both like individuals and organizations.
Right.
But it's not just about, like blind allegiance.
Yeah.
It's about understanding the deeper mechanics of loyalty, how it functions, and what it truly means.
So we've got the knowledge, we've got the deeper mechanics, but then what? Like, what do we actually do with all this?
Right, that's where the third catch comes in.
Okay.
Wisdom of the message.
Okay, so what is that?
It's about extracting, like, actionable direction from the message.
So figuring out
what it's telling you to do.
Okay.
Heward-Mills argues that a message can be heard, understood, and even liked.
Yeah.
But like, if it doesn't provide a clear direction or guidance for action, its impact is limited.
So it's like having all the ingredients, understanding the science behind baking a cake, but still not knowing how to actually put it all together.
It's a great analogy.
Yeah.
And I think what's really insightful here is how Heward-Mills connects this back to the idea of anointing. He's essentially saying that true spiritual power comes not just from, knowledge or understanding, but from the ability to, like, apply that knowledge wisely and take directed action.
So it's about moving beyond, like, passive learning and actually putting those principles into practice.
Exactly, yeah.
Okay, so we've got knowledge, we've got understanding, we've got wisdom. What's next?
The fourth catch is counsel of the message.
Okay.
And this one focuses on seeking out and recognizing specific advice or tips within the message itself.
So it's about identifying those like golden nuggets of wisdom
exactly.
that can guide our actions.
He actually shares this great anecdote about receiving advice from another prominent minister, Kenneth Hagin, who told him, quote, "You must bend over backward to be honest if you are a minister."
Wow.
This, like, small piece of advice had a profound impact on Heward-Mills and his ministry.
It's amazing how, like, even a single sentence, when delivered at the right time, can have, like, a lasting effect on someone's life.
Oh, absolutely.
But then things take a slightly unexpected turn with the fifth catch, fear of the message. I know fear isn't exactly a word we associate with positive growth, so this one needs a little more explanation.
Yeah, you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
He's not advocating for fear in a negative or paralyzing sense.
Okay.
Instead, he's talking about a healthy respect for the consequences that can arise from ignoring or misapplying the message.
So it's not about being scared of the message itself, but about understanding its weight.
Exactly.
A potential impact.
Exactly.
Good and bad.
True understanding should lead to a certain level of caution.
Okay.
And reverence for the power of the message.
Right.
And the actions we take based on it.
So it's like understanding that baking a cake involves hot ovens and sharp knives, right?
Oh, perfect analogy.
You need to be aware of the potential dangers and handle everything with care.
It's about respecting the process and understanding that even the most, positive message can have unintended consequences if it's mishandled.
Okay, so we've covered 5 catches so far.
We have.
Ready for the next one?
Hit me.
What's catch number 6?
Catch number 6 is all about recognizing the inherent power and influence of the message itself.
Right.
Heward-Mills calls this might of the message.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Tell me more.
So he draws on examples from his own ministry to illustrate this point, right?
Okay.
Talking about how his teachings have reached a global audience.
Okay.
And how potent the faith message as preached by figures like Kenneth Hagin can be.
Right.
It's about acknowledging that ideas, especially when they resonate with people on a deep level, have the power to shape the world.
It's like realizing that the simple act of baking a cake can, bring people together, create traditions, even just spark joy.
Right.
It's a small act with a potentially big impact.
And in the context of Heward-Mills' sermon, it's about understanding that the message of spiritual anointing has the potential to empower individuals and transform communities. He's saying that the message itself carries a certain weight and force that can't be ignored.
So it's not just about what we do with the message, but also about recognizing the inherent power that the message itself holds.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Fascinating. Okay, ready for the final catch?
I am. Hit me.
Catch number 7.
Okay.
Perhaps the most subtle, but also the most profound. Heward-Mills calls it the spirit of the message.
Okay.
This refers to the intangible essence that goes beyond the words themselves.
Oh, okay. This one sounds a little abstract. Can you give me an example?
So he uses the example of the message of loyalty and suggests that the spirit of that message is love. It's about discerning the underlying values, motivations, and emotions behind the message.
Okay.
The unspoken spirit that gives it life and meaning.
So it's like realizing that the most delicious cakes are often baked with love. The ingredients might be the same, but there's that intangible quality.
Precisely.
That makes it special.
It's about connecting with the heart of the message.
Okay.
Understanding its deeper meaning and sensing the motivations behind it.
Wow. So we've gone through all 7 of Heward-Mills' catches for catching the anointing.
We have.
It's quite a framework.
It is.
But I have a feeling this is just the beginning of our exploration.
Absolutely.
I'm already starting to think about how these ideas might apply to other areas of life beyond just the religious context.
You're right, and that's exactly where we're headed next.
Okay.
Get ready to have your mind blown.
Okay.
I think this is where it gets really interesting.
Awesome. Okay, so my brain is officially buzzing after going through those 7 catches. I'm starting to see how they could be applied to so many different areas of life. It's like a whole new way of looking at information and knowledge.
It's true. That's the beauty of these kinds of frameworks. They give us new lenses to examine the world.
Okay, so you mentioned how these catches could be applied beyond just the religious context. Let's get specific. How about an example from the world of science? I'm thinking something like quantum mechanics.
Oh, perfect example.
It's so mind-bogglingly complex,
right,
but also incredibly fascinating.
Yeah, quantum mechanics is a great case study because it really challenges our everyday understanding of how the universe works. So let's start with the first catch, knowledge of the message.
Okay.
In this case, it would involve like delving into the core concepts of quantum mechanics, things like, wave-particle duality, superposition, and quantum entanglement.
Right, so it's about going beyond like just knowing that quantum mechanics exists and actually getting into the nitty-gritty details.
Yes.
It's about poring over those like dense textbooks, watching lectures, maybe even trying to wrap your head around some of the equations.
Exactly. It's about like immersing yourself in the knowledge and building a solid foundation of understanding. But then, as Heward-Mills emphasizes, we need to go beyond just like surface level knowledge. We need to move into the realm of understanding the message.
Okay, so in the case of quantum mechanics, this would be about going beyond, just memorizing definitions and equations.
Right.
It's about trying to grasp the truly, like, mind-bending implications of what these concepts actually mean.
Exactly.
Oh, wow.
It's about, like, grappling with questions like, what does it really mean for a particle to exist in multiple states at once? How does quantum entanglement actually work?
Yeah.
And what are its potential implications? These are questions that, like, even physicists are still, debating.
It's like, okay, I know that a cake needs flour, sugar, and eggs.
Right.
But what happens, like, on a molecular level? When those ingredients interact, that's where things start to get really interesting.
Yeah. It's a great analogy. And it highlights how understanding the message requires us to, like, engage with the material on a much deeper level, to think critically, and to ask those why and how questions.
Right, and this is where I feel like a lot of us get stuck.
Right.
We might have a basic understanding of something, but we don't always push ourselves to, like, go deeper.
It's true. But Heward-Mills' framework challenges us to move beyond, like, passive acceptance.
Right.
And to actively seek deeper meaning. And that's where the third catch, wisdom of the message, comes in.
So how would wisdom of the message apply to something, as complex as quantum mechanics?
It's about connecting the dots and finding practical applications for this knowledge.
Right.
Even if those applications aren't immediately obvious. For example, we can ask, how might our understanding of quantum mechanics impact fields like computing, medicine, or even like our understanding of consciousness?
Oh, okay. So it's about looking beyond the theoretical and starting to see the potential, like, real-world implications, even if they're still on the horizon.
Right. It's about recognizing that even the most, like, abstract ideas can have a profound impact on our lives. And I think this is where quantum mechanics gets really, like, exciting. It's a field that's still, like, rapidly evolving, and the potential applications are only just beginning to be explored.
Yeah, it's like the early days of understanding electricity,
Oh, yeah.
People probably thought it was just a cool parlor trick until they started to see its potential to light up cities, power entire industries.
Exactly. And I think that's the beauty of science, is constantly pushing the boundaries of what we thought was possible. Now, as we move into the fourth catch, counsel of the message, things get even more interesting.
Okay, so how would seeking counsel play out in the world of quantum mechanics? Like, it's not like we can just call up a quantum physicist and be like, hey, I need some advice.
Well, maybe we can, but more realistically, this catch would involve, like, seeking out the insights and interpretations of, experts in the field. This could be through, reading books and articles by leading physicists, attending lectures and conferences, or even, like, engaging in online discussions with others who are, passionate about the topic.
So it's about actively seeking out, like, guidance.
Yes.
Different perspectives to help us make sense of this, like, complex information. It's about acknowledging that we don't have to, like, figure it all out on our own.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And even in a field, like, as complex as quantum mechanics, there are often, disagreements. Different schools of thought. Counsel of the message encourages us to, like, explore those different perspectives and to refine our own understanding through, dialogue and debate.
It's like having a group of friends trying to figure out how to, like, put together a complicated piece of furniture. Everyone brings their own ideas and insights, and eventually, through collaboration, they manage to build something, amazing.
That's a great analogy. It highlights how different perspectives can, like, enrich our understanding, lead to more creative solutions. Now let's move on to the fifth catch, fear of the message. This one is particularly relevant to something like quantum mechanics because it has the potential to be, both incredibly beneficial and potentially dangerous.
Yeah, okay, so how does fear fit into this equation? Are we talking about being afraid of, like, the science itself?
Not at all. Remember, Heward-Mills uses fear to represent, like, a healthy respect for the potential consequences of a message, both positive and negative. In the context of quantum mechanics, this would involve, recognizing the immense power that this knowledge holds, acknowledging the potential for both groundbreaking advancements and unintended consequences.
So it's like realizing that the same knowledge that allows us to bake a cake can also be used to, like, create explosives.
Yeah.
Right. The ingredients themselves aren't inherently good or bad.
Right.
It's all about how we choose to use them.
Exactly. And with quantum mechanics, we're talking about a field that could revolutionize, like, everything.
Yeah.
From medicine to energy production to artificial intelligence, but it also has the potential to be, misused, whether intentionally or unintentionally.
Right.
Fear of the message encourages us to approach this knowledge with, caution.
Right.
To consider the ethical implications and to be mindful of the potential, like, risks as well as the rewards.
So it's about understanding that knowledge is power.
Yeah.
And like all forms of power,
Right.
it needs to be handled responsibly.
Exactly.
We need to be aware of the potential pitfalls.
Right.
And proceed with a sense of, like, caution and humility.
I could have said it better myself. Now let's move on to the sixth catch, might of the message.
Okay, so how does might apply to quantum mechanics? Is it about recognizing that it's, like, a really difficult subject to understand?
I mean, that's certainly part of it. But it goes beyond, like, just acknowledging the intellectual challenge. Might of the message is about recognizing the inherent power and influence that this knowledge holds. Quantum mechanics has the potential to, like, reshape our understanding of the universe and ourselves in profound ways.
Wow.
It's a field that's already leading to incredible technological advancements.
Right.
And it's, like, only scratching the surface of what's possible.
It's like realizing that your, simple cake recipe has the power to create, like, a family tradition, to bring people together, or even to, like, start a successful bakery. It's about recognizing that even seemingly small things can have a ripple effect that extends far beyond our, like, initial intentions.
Oh, I love that. It's about understanding that ideas have power. And in the case of quantum mechanics, we're dealing with ideas that could potentially, like, revolutionize our world.
It's both exciting and a little bit daunting. All right, so we're on the final catch now, right? Spirit of the message. How does that apply to something like quantum mechanics, which is, all about science and logic?
This is where things get really interesting. Remember, spirit of the message is about sensing the intangible essence that goes beyond the words themselves. In the context of quantum mechanics, it could be about, like, tapping into the sense of wonder and awe that this knowledge evokes. It's about recognizing the beauty and elegance of the underlying principles that govern the universe at its most, like, fundamental level.
So it's about, like, moving beyond the equations, the experiments, and connecting with the deeper, like, philosophical and existential questions that quantum mechanics raises.
Exactly. It's about asking questions like, what does quantum mechanics tell us about the nature of reality? What are the implications for our understanding of, like, free will and determinism? Does it point towards, like, a deeper connection between consciousness and the universe?
It's like realizing that the true magic of baking isn't just about, the ingredients or the process.
Right.
It's about the joy it brings to people, the memories it creates, and the sense of, like, connection it fosters.
Beautifully put. And I think that's the beauty of Heward-Mills' framework. It challenges us to, like, engage with information, not just intellectually, but also emotionally and even, like, spiritually. It encourages us to seek not just knowledge, but also understanding, wisdom, and a sense of wonder.
Wow, this has been an incredible deep dive so far. I'm already starting to see the world in, like, a whole new light, but I have a feeling we're not done yet, are we?
You're right. We've explored how these catches can be applied to something, as complex and scientific as quantum mechanics.
Right.
But there's still more to uncover.
We really went deep on quantum mechanics. I feel like I learned so much, but at the same time, I have even more questions than when we started.
That's a good thing. It means you're really, like, engaging with the material, letting yourself be challenged by new ideas.
As we've been talking about these 7 catches, I've been trying to apply them to my own life, thinking about like messages and ideas that have really impacted me. And one thing that keeps coming to mind is this book I read a while back. It was about the power of habits.
Oh, interesting. How do you see Heward-Mills' framework connecting with that?
Well, I think the first catch knowledge of the message would be about understanding the basic science of how habits work, like the neurological loops, the cues and rewards, all that stuff.
Right, right.
But then understanding the message takes it a step further and asks, like, how do these principles actually play out in my own life? What are my personal triggers and routines?
It's about moving beyond the theoretical, starting to examine your own behaviors and patterns.
Exactly. And then wisdom of the message would be about applying that knowledge to create new habits or break old ones, putting those principles into action, seeing what works for you.
It's about experimenting, personalizing the information, finding what resonates with your own, unique needs and goals.
And counsel of the message could be about seeking advice from others who have successfully changed their habits. Maybe reading books or articles by experts, or even like joining a support group.
It's about recognizing that you don't have to go it alone.
Yeah.
And that there's like wisdom to be gained from the experiences of others.
And fear of the message, in this context, might be about acknowledging the potential downsides of bad habits, the negative consequences they can have on your life.
Yeah.
Understanding that change can be difficult, that there will be setbacks along the way.
It's about approaching the process with a healthy dose of realism, recognizing it's not always going to be easy.
Right, and might of the message would be about recognizing the transformative power of habits. It's about understanding that small changes, repeated consistently over time, can have a huge impact on your life.
Yeah, it's about seeing the potential for personal growth.
Like
recognizing that you have the power to shape your own destiny through your habits.
And finally, the spirit of the message, when it comes to habits, might be about connecting with the deeper motivations behind why you want to change. Like, what are your core values? What kind of person do you want to become?
It's about tapping into the emotional and psychological forces that drive your behavior.
Yeah.
Aligning your habits with your aspirations.
As I'm talking about this, I'm realizing this framework can be applied to pretty much any area of life where you're trying to learn or grow. It's like a universal decoder ring for understanding and applying information.
I think that's a brilliant way to put it, and it really speaks to the power of, structured thinking. Heward-Mills might have been talking about spiritual anointing in his sermon.
Yeah.
But the underlying principles have much broader relevance.
Absolutely. So we've explored how these catches can be applied to science, personal development, and even something as seemingly mundane as habits. What's really fascinating to me is how this framework encourages us to be more active participants in the learning process.
Exactly. It's not just about passively, absorbing information.
Right.
It's about actively engaging with it, seeking understanding, finding ways to apply it to our own lives.
I feel like this deep dive has given me a whole new set of tools for approaching information and learning.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
And I think the real takeaway here is that learning is a lifelong journey.
Yeah.
It's about being curious, asking questions, and constantly seeking, new perspectives.
And maybe, just maybe, it's about catching a little bit of that anointing along the way, whatever that might look like for each of us.
Beautifully said.
Well, on that note, I think it's time to wrap up this deep dive. I don't know about you, but my brain is officially full. Thank you so much for guiding us through these fascinating ideas.
My pleasure. And remember, keep exploring, keep questioning, keep learning. There's a whole world of knowledge out there just waiting to be discovered.
And thanks to all of our listeners for joining us on this journey of exploration. We'll see you on the next deep dive.